My name is Janelle Winter, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner and Director of the Division of Housing and Community Resources at the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And I'm here today as part of DCA's NJHOMES training to give you an introduction to affordable life cycle housing. So the first question we have is, what is affordable housing? And the answers to that can be a lot of different things, but there's a really simple one to remember. And affordable housing is simply housing that people can pay for while still having enough income so that they can pay for the rest of their needs. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development uses a measurement that says if people pay more than about 30% of their income towards their housing, they're considered cost burden. And if they pay more than about 50% of their income towards their housing, they're severely cost burden. And what that means is that they have a much higher chance of facing housing instability, of eviction, or even foreclosure than if they were paying a more affordable portion of their income towards their rent. Here in New Jersey, the average fair market rent for a two-bedroom apartment is about a little over $2,000 a month. So this would be affordable to a family that makes at least $83,173 a year. So families that are making less than that amount would find themselves cost burdened, or even, depending on their income and the price of their rent, severely cost burdened. When you look at this at what it looks like for a non-cost burdened household, you can see on this chart that their income is significantly higher than their rent. At a little bit above 80%, they have sufficient money to pay their rent of a little more than $24,000 a year and still pay for what else they need. But if that rent starts to creep up, their income will need to creep up in order to maintain that proportion. And if their rent starts at a lower amount, if they're at $60,000 a year or $40,000 a year, then that rent eats up a much larger proportion of their income, and they have much less money to address all of the other needs that they have. Of course, that's talking about averages in the state, but people don't live on the average. They live in the specifics. And so affordable housing is really tailored to some real specifics about certain areas. A lot of affordable housing is governed by the area median income. And that's just what it says. In a specific area, what is the income at which about half of people make more than it, half of people make less than it? What's the median in that specific area? And so most affordable housing uses this as a standard to determine what is affordable. And most housing, to be considered affordable, is tailored to people who are making about 80% or less of the area's median income. Someone's considered very low income if they're making 50% or less of the area median income, and extremely low income if they're making 30% or less of that area median income. So it's really governed by, first, the geographic area. Here in New Jersey, the area median income is different in Bergen County than it is in Salem County. It's also governed by household size. If you have two adult earners, there's more income coming into the household. If you have a single parent with a few kids, there's less income to account for all of the people in that household, while they also need a larger apartment or home to accommodate their full family. So all of those factors go into determining what's affordable housing. And that also tells us why sometimes we have a very strange occurrence, which is people can be too poor to afford affordable housing. Someone cannot make enough money to be able to actually get into affordable housing and not be cost burdened. And the way that happens is if affordable housing is targeted to people who are making about 80% or 60% of the area median income, but you're a family who's extremely low income, you're making about 30% or less of the area median income. For you to afford that rent, you'd still have to pay more than 30% of your income every month for that rent. So you would be too poor to find that affordable housing affordable. And that's why we need affordable housing that's set at a variety of different levels, so that no matter what income you have, there is housing that you can pay for and be able to maintain that housing, maintain your life, and not be at risk of housing instability. So how do we make housing affordable for people? Well, since it's based on income versus rent, one way is to raise people's incomes. So right now, according to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, the housing wage on average in New Jersey is $39.99 an hour. And what that means is in order to make enough money on average in New Jersey to be able to be paying no more than 30% of your income towards your rent and to be able to afford that average rental, that's how much an hour you'd have to make. But there are a lot of people who don't make anywhere near that hourly housing wage. And who is that? It's people in a lot of professions. It's nursing assistants, it's administrative assistants, it's home health aides, truck drivers, security guards, all sorts of people doing all sorts of work that we need in our towns, but who don't make enough money to be able to find housing affordable on average on the open market. And as we all know, it can be very hard to significantly raise your income year after year to meet rising rents as well. So what else can we do? Well, one way that people meet this challenge is by providing rental assistance in the form of rental subsidies or housing vouchers. And the way that housing vouchers work is that if you have a voucher, you pay about 30% of your income towards your rent. So that makes it affordable. It keeps you from being cost burdened. And then the voucher pays the remainder of the rent up to a cap of the fair market rent. So the household pays a portion of the rent, and then the public subsidy pays the remainder. This can be very successful in making housing affordable for people all over the state. But one of the problems with it is it can be very expensive. As an example, DCA operates the state's Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. And Section 8 is a voucher program many people are familiar with. It's the largest voucher program in the country. So on that program, we support about 25,000 households with vouchers. They pay 30% of their income towards the rent. We pay the remainder. What that costs every year is $330 million a year for those 25,000 households. And unfortunately, there are many more people who need this assistance than we're able to support. The last time we were able to look at supporting individual people, new people on the program, we actually had to hold a lottery to get onto the waiting list for that housing. We thought we would be able to support 15,000 more people over time. When we opened up that application, more than 200,000 families applied. So the demand for these vouchers is very, very great. And the amount of funding that we can provide is nowhere near sufficient. And the other problem is that as the rents rise, our cost to provide those vouchers rises as well. So very, very rarely does the rent go down. So we see our portion of what we have to pay going up and up just as the rents go up. So while this can be really successful in the short term, over the long term, it tends to become unsustainable. So what else can we do? One major thing we can do is to create more housing. This is going to help us in two ways. The first is that it helps us to create more natural, affordable housing. As there's just more housing stock available, rents stabilize. People who are renting and who can afford to pay a little more will move into new housing that's created. And then other people can rise up that rental market. They can access those units, and then more units become available as they vacate them. So we see it's a simple housing supply and demand equation. As there's more supply, the demand fills in that supply, and we see rent stabilize. But as we've seen, there are people who make so little money that it's still going to be very difficult for them to afford housing. And for those folks, we need to build housing that's specifically affordable housing, that's created intentionally and specifically to rent to households who are making 80% or less of the area median income, so that they will be able to support their lives and be able to pay for their other costs and still rent housing. So we've talked about affordable housing. What is life cycle housing? And this is something that has a very simple definition as well. It's housing that's affordable to everyone at all ages and stages of life. So at different stages of life, people want and need different types of housing. When I was 18, I lived in a college dormitory. When I was 25, I lived in an apartment in a city with a number of different roommates. Now, I live in a single family home in a small town where I'm raising my son. Once he's fully raised and he goes to live in his own college dormitory or apartment, I might want to downsize and live in an apartment or live in a smaller house, live in something that's all one story so it'll be accessible for me as I age. I might want to live in a variety of different housing throughout the course of my life. That's true of many, many people. People's incomes change over time. Someone may need affordable housing at the beginning of their career. As they build their income, that might not be something that they need anymore. People's needs also change. As people age, they might need more accessibility in their housing. Some people need that accessibility from day one. Some families might have a child who needs that accessibility, and so then their housing needs change as well. People and communities don't stay the same. We aren't static. And what Life Cycle does is it allows communities to adapt and evolve as their residents do. So who lives in life cycle housing? Well, the short answer is everybody does. But we see young adults who might be looking for independence, their first apartment. Maybe they want a walkable downtown with opportunities to go out, places that they can work. Young families who want to get a starter home. Growing families who are having more children, their children are getting older, that starter home doesn't fit them anymore. And then empty nesters who want to downsize, but still remain in towns where they've built their whole lives. Multi-generational housing, as somebody ages, they might want to move in with their child's family, or they might want to have their child and their child's family move in with them in their home. And then, of course, all of the people that we need in our towns to make them work. Caregivers, nursing assistants, truck drivers, teachers, first responders. All of the people that we need in our towns also need life cycle housing that's affordable to them. So what does that life cycle housing look like? A lot of people picture housing as kind of one of two options. A really big apartment building with a lot of small units where maybe a lot of young people live. It's in a city, they're going out all the time. And then a large single family home in a town on large lots. Both of those are life cycle housing. But when we talk about life cycle housing, what we often mean is the missing middle housing between those two extremes. Because there are a lot of different housing options that people want and need that doesn't look like either of those two things. We're talking about smaller single family homes, starter homes, and condos. Duplexes and townhomes. Owner-occupied rentals where someone owns a duplex, a triplex. They live in one unit, they rent out the other so they can make the mortgage, and they create a housing opportunity for someone else. Recently, we've been seeing a lot of interest in accessory dwelling units and tiny homes as an option for housing. Small apartment buildings and larger garden apartment building settings. Also things like cottages, co-housing, all sorts of new models of housing that people are thinking up every day. All of this can look like life cycle housing. When we talk about affordable housing, we often find that people have heard a lot of myths about affordable housing that really doesn't match up to the reality. One of those myths is that affordable housing drives down property values. The reality is that there's been a lot of research conducted on this in a lot of different places, and all of it shows that there really isn't a negative impact on neighborhood home prices, on times on market, et cetera, when you have well-built affordable housing coming into a neighborhood. And there's some good reasons for this. Affordable housing usually has a public subsidy in it. So state or federal, some type of funding, and that funding comes with requirements about the quality of the housing that has to be built. Often includes green features, often includes infrastructure improvements. Affordable housing also looks for places like vacant lots, vacant or dilapidated buildings, and turns that into affordable housing. So you take what's an eyesore in the neighborhood, what truly is dragging down property values, and it becomes an attractive home that helps increase property values. Another myth is that affordable housing, while it might provide a good benefit for people, is really a financial burden on towns. That it means more kids in the schools, it means more municipal services, but it doesn't bring any benefits, economic benefits at least, to offset those things. But the reality is that affordable housing really drives opportunities for economies to thrive. The National Association of Home Builders has found that for every 100 units of affordable housing that's built, it creates 300 construction jobs. Also, families who aren't cost burdened, who are living affordably, have more money to spend in the town. They can go to restaurants. They can purchase things that they need for their homes. Also, when workers aren't worried about losing their home, aren't facing housing instability, don't have to constantly move to try and find some place that they can live, or aren't displaced, they're better workers. They can stay longer where they work, they concentrate on their work, they have higher productivity, and they don't have lost wages. So also, new homeowners in the town mean they pay new property taxes. But even if they're not homeowners, they're also paying taxes in the town. They're buying things for sales taxes. They're doing other things that help increase the tax base and actually bring economic opportunities to towns. Also, affordable housing is often revitalizing neighborhoods. As we mentioned, it's often built in places where there have been vacant lots, where there have been dilapidated homes. Instead, as that neighborhood revitalizes, you have more people, you have better looking homes, more foot traffic, and suddenly businesses already in the town have more consumers, and entrepreneurs start looking around and saying, this is a place I want to invest. This is a good opportunity for my business. And then what we have is a virtuous circle where more people are coming into town. They're creating more opportunities for businesses. The businesses and the individuals are putting more money into the town, who can then provide better services for everyone who lives there. Really provides a great opportunity. And also for those businesses, they have a stream of people who live close, who can work in their businesses and who like to work there because it's near their home. Another myth is that affordable housing is going to bring down the community. There's going to be more crime. There's going to be less cohesion. We're not going to know our neighbors anymore. It's not going to be the place that we know. Again, the reality is that affordable housing really offers an opportunity to build community. When we reduce housing instability, people can stay in their homes longer. They can invest in their communities. They're not transient there, so we know our neighbors. We've known them for a while. There's more neighborhood cohesion, and that brings less crime. We also see that housing stability helps our communities have healthier families, both physically and mentally. People aren't worrying about how they're going to make the rent or where their kids are going to sleep tonight. So that allows them to have better mental health. Also, they're living in affordable housing. It's high quality, it's safe. It doesn't have some of the dangers and damages that we see in dilapidated homes. And also, as neighborhoods revitalize and that infrastructure improves, there are opportunities to be outside, to walk around, to not rely on your car, to go to the park, to walk downtown for dinner. So people are moving more. So we see physically and mentally healthy families. And also, when the kids are in the schools, they're not worried about housing instability. They're getting better grades, better educational outcomes. And that's not just a benefit for those individual children and their families, but over time, that is a benefit for a town and for our entire state. And another myth is that affordable housing means a big apartment building plopped down in town full of small apartments, while what most communities want is larger single-family homes. Again, that is a myth because first, any model of housing can be affordable housing. And second, what people want is a variety of types. The more you ask people and the more they see different types of housing, the more that's what people want. They say, hey, I like what I have, but actually I think I might want to move there, or that seems like a great opportunity for me as I'm older. As people age, they might want something different. We're seeing a trend of smaller families. So some of those really large homes aren't quite as attractive as they might have been to some families in some places. And anything we can do to help people find those affordable starter homes is really something that's going to revitalize a lot of communities, bring a lot of younger families in at the start of their life journey, because that's one of the biggest complaints we hear is that people want to buy a home, they're ready to buy a home, but there are so few of those type of affordable starter home opportunities at a variety of different income levels. So I hope that you're thinking right now, that all sounds great, but how do we do it? So when we think about affordable housing development, how we create that housing, the place to start really is the place you start with many things. You make a plan. And the first part of that plan is assessing community needs. And this is something that NJ Homes and its training will help with. So there's a variety of questions that you need to ask at the start of the process. First is, what does the data tell us? What does it tell you about who's living in your community, what opportunities there are, what people need? Another thing to do is to ask our neighbors. What do your neighbors tell you about what they want? You might hear a story about someone who wants to be able to keep their aging mother living in her own home, but is having trouble finding people who can help care for her during the day because there's no affordable housing nearby. Everybody has a long commute, makes it unreliable. You might hear about someone who wants their grandchildren to be able to grow up near them, but that affordable starter home prices are so high that they're worried their children won't be able to bring their own families where they grew up. There's a variety of different ways that we hear about what people need in housing and in affordable housing. There's also, what are your opportunities and challenges? And those are going to be unique for every municipality. What sort of land do you have available? What does your zoning look like? Is it providing you what you need to create the town you want right now and in the future? What infrastructure do you have and what do you think you need for the future? And of course, where does the money come from to pay for all of this? The overarching question that we would like everyone to be asking is, how can you as a town take the lead and make policy that will create the neighborhoods that you need and want and that are affordable for everyone in your town? Part of doing this work is understanding the development process and development roles. You don't have to become a developer. You don't have to take all of these roles, but it's very helpful in thinking about affordable housing and what some of the barriers and challenges might be to understand what it takes to get to affordable housing. So you have to start with a vision or a concept of what type of project or projects you want. You have to be able to look at the feasibility and see, can we do the types of things that we want? You have to understand the deal-making part of the process. There's a lot of different funding, a lot of different resources that need to go into creating affordable housing. It's important to understand who plays a role in all of those deals. Construction and lease up. And when people think about developing affordable housing, this is the part they usually think about, where you're literally building a home, literally having people turning the keys and moving in. But perhaps the most important part of this is what people usually think about the lease, which is the ongoing operation of that housing. That's the longest phase. It can sometimes seem like it takes a while to develop affordable housing, but the real longest part of the process is the overall operation of that housing over the long term. It's important to make sure that that housing is going to be able to continue to be high quality, affordable housing that remains an asset to its community. And part of doing this is being able to identify and evaluate what's going to make for a good project. How do we look at a project and decide, is this going to actually work? And also, should it work in our town? Is this a good idea for us? Does it meet our community's needs? Does it pencil out? Is it going to both be able to be created, but also over the long term, operate in a way that it's going to be able to pay its bills, maintain itself, continue to be affordable, and continue to be that attractive asset in the community and not something that's going to be a liability? These are all really important questions to understand about any project. And of course, one of the biggest questions, perhaps the biggest question that comes up about affordable housing development is, how do we pay for it? And there are a variety of ways that affordable housing is paid for. The biggest way, the largest program providing affordable housing in the country, is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. That is a very important program to provide affordable housing. We could not get along without it, but it's not the only option. There are other resources that fund a wide variety of types of affordable housing. There's federal resources like HOME, like the National Housing Trust Fund, like community development block grants. There are state resources like our State Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Special Needs Housing Trust Fund. There are local housing trust funds and other resources like community development financial institutions, the Federal Home Loan Bank, philanthropy, and other resources. There's a wide variety of ways to pay for all of the costs that go into affordable housing. And is there any other help? Well, the good news is there's a lot of other help there. 4 key agencies to become familiar with are DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, of course, but our partner agencies at the state, the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, the New Jersey Economic Development Agency, and the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. All of these agencies provide a wide variety of financial and technical assistance resources that really can help develop and maintain a lot of different housing options. Here at DCA, we have a number of divisions where we have a lot of staff who have a lot of expertise in all aspects of affordable housing development. Between them, they have pretty much seen it all and done it all, and probably some things that we haven't even thought of yet. At the Division of Housing and Community Resources, we fund a lot of affordable housing, both the capital part of building it, as well as the operating part of helping people to pay rents, whether in an affordable housing development or out on the market. Local planning services provides a lot of technical assistance on not just affordable housing development, but economic development to municipalities. And I hope everyone is very familiar with local government services, which provides a range of assistance to municipalities all over the state. And our Division of Codes and Standards is charged with making sure that all of our housing meets the standards it needs to in terms of habitability and safety. In addition to all of the people who make up these divisions and all of the resources that they have, DCA is working hard on providing a lot of other tools. On our data hub, on our website, we have a variety of ways for you to look up data at the state level, at the regional level, but also at the municipal level. If you go and look at some of the resources we have, like the Community Asset Map, the Municipal Housing Profile Dashboard, you might even find some new things out about your own town that you weren't even aware of. This is a great place to start in figuring out what your community needs are and what they might be in the future. And we are adding to that all the time as we look at new data, as we look at things in new ways. We're really eager to share it with you. And I think the final tool I want to mention is what we're here for right now, which is NJHOMES, the training and technical assistance curriculum that we're providing. All of the things that I've mentioned about affordable life cycle housing, all of the aspects of affordable housing development, of the various financing resources, NJHOMES will provide a deep dive into all of those things so you can become more educated and more aware of all of the different opportunities out there. There are some things you're probably an expert in, and there we might be tapping you to help provide some information to some of your peers. But there might be some things you're really wondering about, and we hope that these training resources will help you really look into those areas, find out what you need. And if you can't find it out that way, we're here at DCA to provide help to you directly. We encourage you to keep in touch with us, provide us feedback about how this works for you and what additional information you'd need or like to have, and also to follow up with us and learn more about us. And you can do that by following us on our social media and visiting us on our webpage. Thank you very much for your interest in affordable life cycle housing. And I hope we get the opportunity to work with you on many, many affordable life cycle projects.